When factoring with the box method, the first thing you want to do is factor out the greatest common factor. You did the same thing with the British method, and it's not going to change for the box method. So then to get started with our actual factoring, we want to put the first term and the last term in their product in the first top row of our boxes. So in the first box is our first term, and the second is our last term. So that's like your A and your C. And I'm going to want to multiply those and put their product in the last box on that top row. So now we need to find two numbers that are going to multiply to give us that product of A times C, but those two numbers also have to add up to our B term. So those two factors are going to go below the A times C in that third column. So one of my factors will go here, the other factor will go below it. So we want them to be able to multiply up to that top corner, but we also want those two numbers to add up to give us our B term as well. Next, you are going to look at your three corners, so the top left, top right, and bottom right. And in the last remaining corner, you want to put their greatest common factor. So when I look at those three corners, whatever they share is going to go in that last remaining corner. Okay, at the very least, you're going to have one variable. Now to finish up, you are going to multiply all of the columns upward and all of the rows across. So for my corner, I'm going to be multiplying up by some number, and it's going to give me that first term. I'm going to go back to my corner, and it's going to multiply across to give me one of my factors. And then I'm going to also multiply upward to give me my last term, and then that same number has to be able to multiply across to give me my remaining factor. Now to get our two factored answers, we make an X here in the bottom four boxes, so it's sort of like tic-tac-toe. And we're going to have one factor going crossways and the other factor going crossways. Once you have your two factors, you can always test them with FOIL to make sure that you have factored correctly. Now let's try a few examples. So in A, I have 2x squared minus 11x minus 6. So I want to see, do I have anything in common first? And I don't. 2, 11, and 6 have nothing in common, and their variables don't share anything either. So I'm going to proceed to put my first term in the first box. So 2x squared, my last term of negative 6 in the second box, and now I'm going to multiply 2x squared times negative 6, and that's going to give me a negative 12x squared to go in that last box. So now I need two factors that are going to multiply to give me negative 12, and then they're also going to add up to give me that B term of negative 11. So I only have so many factors that give me 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 4 times 3. So I want to see out of those, which one can give me an 11. 1 times 12 will give me a negative 11 as long as the 12 is negative. So if I have a negative 12 and a positive 1, they will add up to give me negative 11, but when you multiply them, it will give me a negative 12. Now, both of those terms, I also need to put an x behind them so that when I would multiply them, it would multiply up to that negative 12x squared. Now I need to look at my three corners, so 2x squared, negative 12x squared, and a 1x squared, and see if they have anything in common. So if I look at the numbers first, I have a 2, a negative 12, and a 1. They have nothing in common, so I at least know that's just going to stay as a 1. And then if I look at the variables, I have x squared, which is like having two x's. In the top corner, I have another two x's for the x squared, and in the bottom, I have a single x. So at the most, they share a x. So that last corner is going to be a 1x. Now I just have to multiply up and across to fill in the rest of my rows and columns. So if I go up, I want to know what is 1x times what would give me a 2x squared. I know I need another x to get to the x squared, and 1 times 2 would give me that 2x squared. Now to fill in the bottom, 1x times what would still be 1x. Well, I know that anything times 1 is going to be itself, so 1x times 1 will give me my 1x. Now I have this last middle box, and I have two ways to finish it. I can either do 1 times what will give me negative 6, or I could do 2x times what will give me negative 12. Regardless the way you look at it, you need to have that box be a negative 6. Now that everything is filled in, I do an x in the bottom 4, so I crisscross, sort of like tic-tac-toe, there at the bottom, and that's how I'm going to get my answers. So I have a 2x plus 1, and I have a 1x subtract 6. And like we did with our British method, you could always test that with FOIL, and you'll see that it's going to give you that 2x squared minus 11x subtract 6. So let's try another one. So in 2, I put my first term in the first box, so 6c squared. I put my last term in the second box, negative 6. And I need to multiply those two to get my product. So 6c squared times negative 6 will give me a negative 36c squared. Now I need to figure out what two numbers are going to multiply to give me negative 36 and add up to 5. Well, I know 9 times 4 will give me 36, and if my 4 is negative, it'll give me a positive 5. I'm going to put a 9 with a C and a negative 4 with a C. Now I'm going to look at my three corners and see if I have anything in common. So between 6c squared, negative 36c squared, and negative 4c, I can at least start with the numbers and see what they share. So I have a 6, a negative 36, and a negative 4. All three of them are even numbers, so all of them can be divided by a 2. And like I had in the previous problem, my top two corners have 2 c's, and that bottom corner has a 1c. So I'm always going to have at least one variable in common. So that last corner is 2c. So now I'll multiply to fill in everything else. So 2c times what would give me a 6c squared. Well, I know 2 times 3 will give me 6, and I need an extra c so I can get up to c squared. Then I have 2c times what would give me a negative 4c. Well, I know 2 times negative 2 would give me a negative 4, and I already have my c. And then I'm going to do negative 2 times what would give me a negative 6, or I can look at it as 3c times what would give me 9. And in both cases, I need that number to be a positive 3. I can crisscross for my answer, so I'm going to have 3c subtract 2 and 2c plus 3.